through the process of my brother dying and not use or drink. But I was getting mentally ill. My doctor finally got a hold of me and said, you need to go to a mental health facility, and I'm going to send you to Placer County Mental Health to the outpatient program. And so I decided to go to a women's group that was for women who deal with depression, women who deal with grief, and any other thing that needs to come up for them. And so for 2 months, I showed up once a week, trying to be a mini therapist, trying to save everyone else, not letting my feelings come out, because I was a good soldier. And I succeeded at that for about 2 months. And one day I remember driving there and I did not feel the same at all. And I sat down in the chair, and when it was my turn to check in, I remember looking up into the sky, into the top of the room, kind of floating away, and I spoke. And what I said was, I don't want to do this life anymore. I am so done. I can't feel any of this pain, and I'm done. I just want to leave the planet. And I blacked out. And the next thing I knew, I felt somebody's hand on my leg, and I heard somebody whispering in my ear, Kathy, it'll be okay. I promise you, it will be okay. We're going to get help for you. And as I came back into the room and came back into my body, I noticed that everybody was gone, and I don't remember anyone leaving. So they took me down to the psychiatrist, and they evaluated me. And they said they were going to put me into an inpatient mental health facility for at least a week to evaluate me. They just wanted me to lock me up in a padded room, I know that. But I was okay with that because I didn't care. I didn't care at all. I didn't want to live. So they walked me out into the waiting room, waiting for the ambulance to come, because the ambulance had to take me from Sunrise over to Sunrise, which is right around the corner, to Sutter emergency room to evaluate me. And I thought, well, that's stupid. Why can't I drive? So I told the psychiatrist, I said, just let me drive there. It's right around the corner. You don't have to waste the money. They looked at me like, yeah, and you'll never come back. You guys think I'm stupid? I want to go. And they said, no, you think we're stupid. You're staying. So I sat there, and I waited for the ambulance, and here the ambulance comes, and they take me to the back of the ambulance, and they do their due diligence. They do my vitals and say that, okay, everything's okay. We're going to strap you into the gurney. And the next thing I know, they come back and they say, ma'am, I am so sorry, but we can't take you. Well, why not? Because we're not contracted with this facility. You're going to have to go wait for the other ambulance. Wow. Why didn't you just let me drive? Go sit back down. Okay. So, waited for the other ambulance. Ambulance came. They did my vitals. And they said, we're contracted. We're taking you. And they put me in the back of the ambulance, and they strapped me down on the gurney. And I laid there quietly as we drove off. And it was raining horribly that day. And it was thundering, and it was lightning. And all I could hear was the rain and the thunder. And I could hear the dispatcher in the background. And I could hear my breath and nothing else. And all of a sudden, the thunder clapped so loud across the sky. And then a piece of lightning just came down on top of the ambulance that it shattered the ambulance. I thought we got hit. And it was like, oh my God, what just happened? And the EMT that was sitting with me and I looked at each other and I said, oh my God, this reminds me of the night my brother died. It's the same exact thing. It was thundering and lightning, and it was raining so hard. And he lost control. And he said, "Oh, ma'am, I'm so sorry. What happened?" I said, 3 years ago, my brother lost control of his car on Baseline Road in Roseville, and he died. And he said, "What road?" "Baseline." And he said, "Really?" He said, "Well, what kind of a vehicle did he have?" And I said, "He had a black truck." "Well, what happened to him?" And I said, "He probably fell asleep at the wheel or passed out. And he careened off the road and hit the top of the telephone pole. And the telephone pole fell and crushed him in his vehicle." And he said, "Oh my God, I was on the scene and I was the one that pronounced your brother." "What?" And he said, "Did he have a really big tattoo on his arm?" And I said, "Yeah, he did." And he said, "Yes, I was with him." You see, for the last 3 years before that moment, I had prayed for my prayer that I would have enough courage to go to the fire department and the EMT station, because they were right up the road from where my brother died. And I wanted to know, did he die instantly? Was he awake when you got there? Did he say anything? Did he suffer? And 3 years later, in the back of an ambulance, where I did not want to live anymore, my prayer was answered. And the EMT that pronounced my brother was sitting right next to me. And I didn't even know what to do with that information. And I remember looking up at the top of the ambulance, and all of a sudden, the whole cab of the ambulance illumined. And there was an angel there. And I could hear my brother saying, "It's okay, Kathy. I love you. And I am right here all the time." Life is interesting. And we have these spiritual experiences all the time, whether we recognize them or not. And I don't know what that night was about, except to say my prayer was answered. I haven't been able to process it still after all these years. And I had no shift in consciousness. I still didn't care that I wanted to live. I still went to the mental facility and spent over a week there, 48 hours in a padded room. But I do know that God exists. And I know that when we leave this life and go on to the next expression of our lives, we're surrounded always by our loved ones and friends. And I do know that prayers do get answered. Mine did. But they never get answered the way we want sometimes. They never get answered maybe in the time that we want them to be answered, or the way we want them to be answered. But I do believe that our prayers are always answered for our highest and greatest good, in time and on time. And maybe it was because that moment happened to let me know that there is life after death, and there is life in this life, and God is always with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. Woo. Oh. All right. Well, we've come to our last speaker, last but certainly not least. Leah Eldridge. She's a mother of 3, a member of CSA since 2006, a licensed practitioner, and she's been a realtor for almost 20 years here in the area. Part of Leah's mission in life is to help others shine as bright as possible. The title of her talk tonight is "The Truth Shall Set You Free." Welcome, Leah Eldridge.
How you guys doing? Good. We're almost at the end. Thank you all so much for coming. Does anybody need to stand up and shake it out a little bit? No? No? Okay, I kind of do. All right, I gave you a chance. Now you got to listen to me for 15 minutes. Three things cannot long be hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Lord Buddha said that. Did you ever, when you were a kid, did you ever camp out in the backyard with friends, like in your house or somebody else's backyard? I'm going to tell you a true story tonight about camping out in the backyard. It was 1975. It was Northern California. It was a very warm, clear night. And I was going to camp out in the backyard with two other girls, two friends. This was a no-tent night. It was very clear outside, nearly full moon. And so it was just us three girls. Our sleeping bags, some snacks, and a little dog named Winnie. I was 10 years old. And this was that time in life when nothing is impossible. And all of a sudden, a meteor shot across the sky. And all three of us saw it simultaneously, which I guess is not that unusual. But as that shooting star went by, bam! All three of us knew the answers to everything. And I'm not kidding, this was real. This is a true story. This was not childhood fantasy. We knew the answers to it all. For several hours that night, three children spoke like philosophers. We understood the makeup of the atom. We understood how the galaxies were formed. We talked about history and politics. We understood